Yo, what's good, YouTube? It's your boy Sick in the Six Shot Gaming Channel, and I am back with a brand new video for you today. And this is definitely a different video than I normally do on my channel, but I made a video about Bleach before, and I said when the anime comes back, I will be making Bleach videos, and here I am today. We have a Bleach episode 1 review plus anime versus manga comparison. And we basically gonna go over episode 1, everything that happened in episode 1, some of the changes that happened in episode 1 compared to the manga. Also, my thoughts of the direction they went with some of the scenes and so on and so forth from episode 1. And basically just an overall review of the episode. So, let's get started. So, spoiler alert, the episode starts off with a poem that we hear Juha Bach in Juha Bach voice. We hear him speaking, and he's saying this Quincy poem, and the poem is about himself. So as a manga reader, this is something you don't learn about until later on around chapter 537. But for the anime, they decided to put this in the beginning of the episode to give you a little taste of Juha Bach. So I think this is a really good idea that they did, and it gets you hyped up for Juha Bach. You start the episode hearing something about the main villain, and I think that's very cool. So moving on, now we actually get the actual start of the episode where the manga starts it off at, and that's chapter 380. And you got Mayuri and Icon going down an elevator, and they talk about a crucial crisis that's going on in Soul Society right now, and they investigating it. It's pretty much scene to scene with few added stuff, but no big changes. They ain't take nothing out. What we got from the anime is pretty much the same thing that we got from the manga. The only thing is we get different perspectives of conversations, different viewpoints, so on and so forth, but it's pretty much the same thing. It says nothing really changed from the scenes from the manga to the anime. You still get that Mayuri face shot, and the intensity that you get in the anime is probably even way better than you did in the manga, so that's really dope. Okay, so moving on from there, we get a shot of Karakura Town, and this is where we get our first major change in the anime compared to the manga. Now, basically the story beats is still kind of the same, but there's some changes. So this scene right here happens a little bit later in the manga, and I'm gonna showcase that later on. But this is someone doing hollow bait. Then we get introduced to the two new Shinigami, Shino Madarame, which is Ikaku little sister, and Renosuke, I forgot what his last name is, and Korodani, the Shinigami that governs over Karakura Town. We get introduced to these characters in Karakura Town in the anime, when in the manga we get introduced to these characters in Soul Society. For the most part, the conversation is pretty much the same. There's a comedic part in it that was taken out that wasn't used in the anime compared to the manga, where Renosuke makes fun of Shino for not having chest and she punched him in the face, and that's where you actually get the scene of this mysterious figure using the hollow bait in the manga compared to the anime. And even when we see these characters in the manga called Karakura Town, there's more going on than what happens in the anime. Korodani is being a comedic relief, addressing the Yuki punching his face and so on and so forth. But I understand the reason why they went the route they went, because they trying to make it more of a serious tone. There's a couple other things they did in this episode that make it more serious, so I understand the route that they went. But I do enjoy how it was in the manga as well. So moving back on to the episode. So the episode, Yuki and Shino is talking. They're having the conversation. Like I said, the conversation is pretty much the same. Now Shino is talking to Yuki about patrolling, right? So now Shino's like, alright, I'm gonna go do my thing, you gonna go do your thing, and that's that, right? So Yuki's like, oh, I'm scared, why you leaving? And she's like, oh well, you on your own, and she bounces, right? So now Yuki's by himself in the episode, and the manga, this happens, right? This happens in the manga. Shino leaves Yuki for him to patrol by himself. But in the manga, immediately after Shino leaves Yuki runs into a hollow, like a hollow just pops up and stuff like that. Where in the anime, we get Yuki patrolling the area, and we see in the scenery of Karakura Town, and we keep seeing stop signs flashing green, right? And this is where the symbolism comes in Bleach. In the anime, once the stop signs flash red, that's where you see the hollow, right? And the hollow's looking fierce and menacing. And comparing it to the manga, where the manga version of this scene looks more comedic. It looks like Yuki got the crying comedic face, where in the anime, Yuki is scared and he's running for his life, and the hollow's chasing him, and Yuki's ducking and dodging and jumping off a light post and running through buildings, and he's trying to get in contact with Shino, and he runs in his building, he's running up these steps, and he goes to the rooftop, and he finds Shino already beaten up by a whole bunch of other hollows. And this scene is pretty much done the same way as it is in the manga, but of course the anime captures the look of it very, very excellent. So from there, Yuki goes to grab his sword to try to go save Shino, but just like how it was done in the manga, he gets hit by the hollow that was chasing him. Then this is where they do something that I thought was really, really dope, showing the perspective of Yuki, where he's laying and he sees his own blood pouring from his body, and he's talking to himself. And the way they captured this in the anime is very, very dope. He showed the hollow about to kill him with the attack, and it's like, oh, this joint is dope. Animation, everything is beautiful. And then the next part, to me, is definitely the best part of the episode, is when we get, after 10 years, we get the return of the gang, Ichigo and the crew. As you can see, you see Uryu Arrow, we see Orihime healing Yuki, we see Chad saving Shino after Uryu cut off the hollow head, and all of this stuff is new content. We didn't get this type of stuff in the manga. So it's either new stuff or it's rearranged. Like this scene right here with Orihime to I'll provide the first aid, that was rearranged. And this scene right here was rearranged compared to how it is in the manga. So I'm gonna point out the key differences, right? But a lot of stuff is added on because this scene in particular got off screen. I guess Yuki passed out in the manga. So when he wakes up from being passed out, which we see later on in the episode, he recaps it in his head what happened in the manga. Where in the anime, we don't get a recap version of this. We just see outright scenes of this, and we see Orihime using her powers. We seeing Chad use his powers, Uri using his powers, and Ichigo using his powers, even go on Bankai, which didn't happen in the manga at all. We see a little stuff, but we don't get all of what we get like we do here. And it makes me excited, like, yo, if they could add all of this for this little scene right here, imagine what they're gonna do for the major fights. Like, look at this. The little scene they did with Chad was fire. They had Orihime use the reject. That was fire. Then they got Uyu right here doing his little skating moves while shooting the arrows. That's fire. We never seen that in the old Bleach anime at all when it comes in terms of animation, or Uryu moving with Hirin Kyoryaku, and I believe that's how you pronounce it, like that. We get this little scene here in the manga where he shoots out the Elite Regan, and Ichigo almost get hit by it, and they talk about it. That happens in the manga, but everything else from here on doesn't. So this shows the effort that they're going with making this anime really, really good. Like, they adding extra content, so on and so forth. You see Ichigo save Yuki for getting attacked again, and he goes Bankai, which is fire. Now, I also feel another reason why I feel like it's fire, because all of this stuff was off screen, so it could have happened. We just don't know. So I like that the animators and production staff and so on and so forth took advantage of this and added this scene in, and this is really, really dope. The Getsuga Tensho to end it off. You see the effects that it has. It destroys all the hollows in the vicinity. Yo, it's really dope. The animation, yo, the effects is beautiful right here, right? And I appreciate it. And that's a way to start your episode with a bang. That's a way to reintroduce this anime that's been going for 10 years. This is the way to do it. And this was really dope. So another thing they changed is when Yuki asks Ichigo, "Who are you?" In the manga, this happens when Ichigo first saves him. And in the anime, this happens after Ichigo destroys all the hollows. Another thing is that shadow figure that we seen from early in the episode, we see that he's watching this fight going on. So at the end of chapter 480 in the manga, he's watching Ichigo fight the hollows. Where in the anime, they don't showcase this at all. So moving on to the second half of the episode, that first half of the anime covered basically chapter 480, right? So now chapter 481 is basically where Yuki wakes up and so on and so forth. But there is a scene that is shown in the chapter that's not shown in the anime. This scene involves Lisa and Hiyori, and they talking, having a conversation, and then Hiyori notices a Gargantua closing, right? And she's like, "Huh, what is that?" Whatever. Like, she's wondering, and she says she smells the Shinigami and so on and so forth. And this scene is not shown at all in the anime. So I don't know if they decide just to cut the scene, because we don't see Hiyori and Lisa until way later on down in the arc. So they probably figure like, this scene is like, it's really no context to the scene. Maybe someone's not going to understand the scene like that. So they decide, alright, if we take the scene out, we're not going to be missing much. So they just left it out. That's probably what they was thinking about this. So yeah, they cut the scene out of the anime. I don't know if you're going to see this scene later on in the anime. I'm pretty sure we're not. But yeah. So now we got that set. We go back to the episode, and Ichigo is in his room. Yuki wakes up in Ichigo's room. He wakes up for being passed out. Orihime comes through with the bread. Chad and Ishida then proceeds to come through in his room. And this scene is pretty much the same. Nothing really changes, just a little dialogue here and there. But this is pretty much the same from the manga. And then Yuki notices Ichigo is the guy who saved him last night. But then Ichigo says to him like, "No, dude, that was a day ago." And then in the manga, this is when we actually get the flashback of a little bit of the flashback of what happened from what we seen earlier. But here, as you see, Ichigo gives them the donuts. And I thought they had bread. I didn't even know they had donuts as well too. But Ichigo gives them donuts, and then they go on from there. And then Shino comes through the door, and then they have their little moment. And yeah, all this stuff is basically adapted the same way from the manga. Nothing really extra. Then we get the iconic scene where the shadow figure named Eburn steps on Ichigo's bed, and he introduces himself to Ichigo in the game. Now there is a slight change from the anime, from something that happened in the manga. So in the anime, in the same episode, we're going to see Ikaku, Yumi, Chica. But in the manga, we seen them a little bit earlier, right? In the anime, we're going to see them. We're going to talk about that. But in the manga, we get a little quick cut before we get to the Eburn part with Ikaku and Yumi Chica running to their destination and talking about the crisis at hand, where we don't get that in the anime. We just see them at the destination already. So moving on back to the anime. So the anime pretty much adapts almost the same way as the manga. The manga makes it a little bit more comedic. Also, they show Karin and Yuzu where the anime didn't. And there's some back and forth banter between Chad and Ishida, and they talk about eating bread. Hurry up and beat him up so you can get back and finish his bread, and so on and so forth. Then from there, we got Ichigo meeting up with Eburn outside, and Ichigo is telling him to follow him. In the anime, Eburn doesn't do so, but in the manga, Eburn actually follows Ichigo and they talking as they flying. And then Ichigo mentions that, "Yo, is Ishida right? Are you on Rancor?" And Eburn gets pissed off, and then he stops following him and immediately takes the fight to Ichigo. And I'm pretty confused by this, because he gets mad that he gets called on Rancor, like he's not on Rancor, but he is on Rancor. But then I think about it, like, it's confusing. how do you get Quincy abilities if you're a hollow? You understand? Or you're a Shinigami slash hollow, right? Well, basically comes down to you're a hollow. So how do you get Quincy abilities if you're a hollow? Is Yuha able to give hollows Quincy abilities? And how does that work? Because I thought Quincy's and hollows is a poison to each other. So please someone explain to me in the comment section below. If I'm losing it, let me know. But moving on, now we get to the next part of the episode, and we are joined by Yumi, Chica, and Ikaku. And like I said earlier, there is a scene in the manga that shows them running into this area, but we don't get to see that part. And in the anime, we just seen them already at the scene. Also, in the manga version of this scene, Yumi Chica throws in a little joke, it's a little bit more comedic, where in the anime version is taken to be a lot more serious. So this is again the anime changing the tone of certain aspects of the manga to make it more serious to the situation that's going on in the manga or the show, period. Then it moves on from there. We get a scene with Mayuri that we don't get in the manga, at least not at this point. Maybe this is took it from somewhere else, but we don't get this scene from the manga. Then we switch over to Squad 1 Captain Yamamoto, and he's in his barracks chilling, and we see lightning, and Yamamoto take notice of the lightning, and apparently this lightning is from someone he knows. This is from Sasuke, his lieutenant. He turns around, he hears something happens, a head gets cut off, he turns around, he get approached by Stun Ridders, and Stun Ridders are declaring war on Yamamoto, and the anime is done really, really well. You see the reflection of Yamamoto through the visors of the Stun Ridders, where in the manga it was pretty bland and dull. But moving on from there, we got Ichigo versus E-Burn, and this scene is pretty much the same how it is. Obviously, they added more stuff to it with cool animation, so on and so forth, but it's pretty much the same thing. Then we get a cut back to the Stun Ridders talking to Yamamoto. And then the manga happened a little bit differently, because when they declare war, it was the end of the chapter, and they started off the beginning of the next chapter with the Stun Ridders talking to Yamamoto, and then they cut to the Ichigo stuff. But then boom, we get hit with the Sasuke death, and it's pretty much the same way it was executed in the manga. We got the panel of the arrow going through Sasuke, he's hanging on the wall, and the Stun Ridders is talking their shit to Yamamoto, and they declaring war in 5 days, and so on and so forth. So the way it was done in the anime was really, really good, because you've seen the special effects. The effects is just really, really good in this episode. The reflection off the Quincy arrow and everything is just really, really good. And as Yamamoto attacks the Stun Ridders before they could leave, I like what they did with the flames of Yamamoto's sword transition to Ichigo coming out the smoke of E-Burn's attacks. And now we've seen Ichigo flying away from E-Burn. He's fighting E-Burn, and this is pretty much adapted the same. Of course, the quality, the animation is really, really good with where they're going with it, with Ichigo fighting E-Burn. And like I said earlier in the episode, they pretty much rearrange a lot of the scenes that happen in the manga compared to the anime. So in the manga, a lot of these scenes happen together, like Yamamoto interaction with the Stun Ridders, and this scene right here happened all at once. And at this point, Ichigo had pretty much already defeated E-Burn at this time. But in the anime, they do this little cut back and forth, so you could get the correlation between Sasuke talking about the Stun Ridders being able to steal Bankai, while Ichigo is turning Bankai and E-Burn is attempting to steal their Bankai. So I like the direction they went with that. Also, E-Burn using the powers to try to steal the Bankai, the visual effects of it is amazing in this episode. And I like, when I was watching this episode for the first time, I'm like, damn, I don't remember it being like that in the manga. And when I went back and read the manga, I'm like, oh, there is some little stuff that happened, but the episode amplifies it a lot more, which I appreciate. So, moving on from there, Ichigo defeats E-Burn, and it's pretty much done the same exact way as it's done in the manga. No real additional changes on just different viewpoints, so on and so forth. But they pretty much have it the same scene to scene. Ichigo's about to take in Eburn for questioning, and the shadow comes and save Eburn, and then Ichigo's sitting back thinking to himself like, what the hell is going on, and so on and so forth. And then we arrive at the end of the episode, so the visual effects take us into this dark area, and then from the dark area emerges a place, and this place is called the Wandenreich. And as you can see in the anime, it is depicted very, very beautifully, and I enjoyed the look of it. And then we get to see the Stern Ridders that approach Yamamoto. This is the main guy that was talking, that approached Yamamoto and was talking all that hot shit to Yamamoto, and he's talking down to Eburn, and then next thing you know, boom, arm is done. And then we get our first like real look at Juha in episode 1 of the anime. And that's pretty much the end of episode 1, and it pretty much went the same way. There was changes here and there between the episode, but for the most part they adapted all the important things. I guess they took out some things they feel like they need. They rearranged certain scenes to fit the episode. The storyboarding of it was pretty good. It had good correlations, so on and so forth. They ain't make like random cuts like sometimes the manga did. Sometimes the manga made random cuts and stuff like that. And I understand it. Kubo was giving more context, like Yumi, Chica, and Ikaku. That random cut to them real quick. I understand it's showing what's to come, but since me in the anime and mostly everybody read the manga, we don't need to do that same type of storyboarding for the anime. So I appreciate it. Animation was on point. This ending is really, really dope as well. I enjoyed the ending, this ending song. This is a special ending song though, because in episode 2 you get the actual main ending, whatever like that, and we need to get an opening in this episode as well. So when I do episode 2 review, I will go over the opening and the ending and so on and so forth. But for the most part, this episode was great. If I had to, me giving a rating to it, it may be 8.59 for a Bleach Return episode. This episode got me hyped, and it did everything. It had everything I wanted in the episode. It had a little bit of action, especially for what it adapted. What part it adapted, it did a lot, and I appreciate it. And it makes me excited to see the main parts of Bleach, like Juha versus Ichigo, Juha versus Ichibei, the beginning of the war, stuff like that. Byakuya versus Asnot, because not much of that fight was shown, and we already got teased that they're going to be adding stuff. And Kubo already talked about he's going to be adding a lot more stuff to the fights, so I can't wait to see that. I will try to get episode 2 review done as fast as possible, so stay on the lookout for that. I will try to get that done before episode 3 comes out, or if I do, it'll be done a little bit before episode 3, after episode 3 drops. But yeah, but this episode was great. I enjoyed it, and hopefully y'all enjoyed it too. And hopefully if you watch this review and comparison breakdown with me, you enjoyed this video as well. And if you did enjoy the video, please smash the like button. I greatly appreciate it. Helps the channel grow a long way. Let's try to get this video to 100 likes. I greatly appreciate it. And if you're new to the channel, subscribe, and I'll see all y'all later. Peace.